Thanks for attending, everybody. We're here with SecurEnds. I'm Dino. I'm working on the marketing team here. And this is Abhi and Sushank. Abhi is our head of product. Sushank is our solutions manager. And the reason why we put this webinar together is to kind of raise awareness about the current situation with user access reviews and just share some best practices when it comes to automating user access reviews and the difference between how most companies do them nowadays and the way we do it with our solution and with our clients as well. So Abhi and Sushank both have years of experience with IAM, identity, and cybersecurity. Abhi is ex-Microsoft and Deloitte, and so is Sushank. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Abhi. He's going to start things off with the first section where we're going to go over, why automate? Well, why is automation such a big deal in cybersecurity and user access reviews and all this stuff right now? And then we're going to move into the benefits of automation and show the differences between how most organizations do user access reviews and how we do it with SecurEnds. We'll dig a little bit deeper into the product then, and then share some use cases and customer stories before we move into a bit more of an interactive session where you guys ask us some questions and then we'll provide some answers and then close things out with some final thoughts. So yeah, I'll hand it off to you, Abhi. You can start things off with the first section. We still have some people rolling in, but I think we're going to go ahead and kick things off now.
Got it, man. Thanks for kicking it off. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you folks are. Why do we automate user access reviews? If you care about compliance, if you care about security, you would know that automated user access reviews allow you to ensure the right user. And when we say a user, we're talking about an identity. So think of an employee, contractor, or even a service account. So the right user has access to the right resource at the right time, all the time. Now, fundamentally, when you look at the early adoption of user access reviews, it's kind of rooted in compliance because identity kind of breaks down into a user or a service account. User, like I said, you've got employee, contractor, third-party vendors, service accounts. You know what? There's been a proliferation of cloud, digital transformation over the last 10 years, a lot of machine entities. In fact, I was reading this, I believe, was the CSA paper, and it said machine identities have now outweighed human identities. Here's where we are. When you look at the compliance world, you've got an alphabet soup of compliance regulations. I bet if you have worked in GRC or an IAM space, you would be familiar with SOX. You got HIPAA, you got HITRUST, and the list is long. Now, fundamentally, can you do these user access reviews manually? Do you have to automate? Well, you sure can do them manually, but there are risks. And to better understand the risks, and this is essentially coming from the experience we have had onboarding more than 100 plus customers. A typical mid-sized company would have, let's say, 1,500 to 2,500 employees, right? Then you add contractors. And these are not just IT contractors. You would have contractors in marketing. You would have contractors in requisition. And their system of records are not always 80. I mean, they are spread. On top of that, it's having to do a manual review in this organization. You typically go through an IDP. That's oftentimes a system of record for you. You pull up an AD, and you oftentimes see entitlement combinations from 5,000 to 10,000. Now, anybody who has worked in technology knows that not every application authenticates to AD. Also, in the last 2-3 years have been pretty challenging. COVID, which actually accelerated the digital transformation. Many SaaS applications. And not all of them authenticate through an IDP. So having to do a manual review, which apparently by this Gartner stat, 80% of the organizations still engage in, it leaves you to failing audit. Audit failure is a real thing. Also, if you're not able to effectively, efficiently, and on a continuous basis, remove the unauthorized access by revoking the access, or privileged account, so to speak, removing orphaned. That's a risk. That obviously leads to fraud. And in this case, fraud, insider threat is a real thing. There are, we all have woken up to news when a disgruntled employee essentially did a fraud. Did you have a point? Oh, sorry, I thought you had a point. So moving on. Let me see, my screen's jammed. Okay. Audit findings are actually a real thing. You know what, folks? I've been following KPMG study of annual filings of all the SECs, and it astounds me. And I'm going to read it word for word. The company has not appropriately restricted access to the accounting applications to appropriate users. I'm actually going to stop there. Has not restricted the access to accounting applications. You know, folks, the last time this happened, we had Enron. Enron actually led to mandating that continuous user access reviews be performed. And reputation damage is not the only thing, right? There's a financial aspect to these non-compliance. This is one example we found because we work with a lot of healthcare companies, and because we have a SaaS product that they are able to stand up across their IT landscape pretty quickly. I thought I was going to throw this in. $4.5 million. That's not a small amount, and they fail to conduct regular user access reviews. That's astounding, right? That's one part of it, right? So if there's anybody from security here, you would agree that management of these identities, these users, these service accounts is also fundamental to security. And let's get into some of these drivers for it. So, Verizon, I'm sure many of you like me follow Verizon DBIR report. I mean, the latest version came in. 89% of security incidents start with an identity compromise. We all have been implementing MFA. Yep, we know how I wouldn't say easy, but it's possible to work around it. Just imagine, of these 89%, how many of these identities are actually over-provisioned, or are orphaned accounts, or are stale users? Moving on, 80% of the data breaches stem from privileged access. Everybody needs to have a PAM solution. Goes without saying. Here's the issue. If you folks were in a room with me right now, by a show of hands, I would have asked you, do you think you have the right individuals or number of individuals or users in your organization with privileged access? The answer is no. We always often give more access than it's needed. Principle of least privileges is sounds good. It's a great concept, right? But if you are one of those companies that has a buttoned up RBAC, religiously follow it, congratulations. I tip my hat to you. Other companies, they just don't. And that's why 55% of organizations, only 55 are confident on their identity program. And when I looked at this, I asked myself, so what changed? Like, what drove all of this? And getting into the next slide, I think I have the answer for you folks. 10 years ago. Yeah, I guess so. 10 years ago, I couldn't get a product out without doing a requisition to my DevOps, which took, like a month. Now, thanks to cloud adoption, almost every company has at least one cloud provider. In my last gig at Deloitte, I actually consulted a pretty big, it was a pretty big acquisition, and they wanted to go multi-cloud because they wanted to avoid vendor lock-in. They also wanted to spread their risk and get better services from one of the service providers. So when you look into this evolving, very fluid landscape, your non-human identities are way more than user identities. And this is coming from personal experience. I was actually on one of the implementation calls, and we pulled out the service accounts. And the first question, the head of our implementations, Jack quickly asked them, so who's the owner of these service accounts? Stairs. blank stares. Nobody had them, right? So you start putting these things together, you see why only 6 out of 10 organizations actually have the confidence. Now, this actually blew my mind when I came upon this Veronis study. So Veronis works with a lot of our financial services companies, highly regulated, right? And they polled all of these companies in 21, and they found that 39% of the firms have over 10,000 stale user accounts, right? Now, it didn't talk about how many of them were under-provisioned, provisioned rightly, over-provisioned, but the fact is, for a hacker, all it takes is one account. You do a lateral move, you get to one account, and that's about it. So, and that essentially has now led Gartner to proclaim that by 2023, 75% of these security failures will result from inadequate management of identities, access, and privileges. It's up by 50%. That's a lot, folks. So, and in my head, when I think about these stats, right, I always think about, COVID accelerated the digital transformation. Almost every company. I mean, we actually work with it's a automobile firm. It's like one of the biggest automobile firms. It's a German. We work with their American subsidiary. I mean, they up until now have had a very rigid stance on on-prem, but they're open to the idea. I see they all recently bought Salesforce. So I do want to address this very important point. I am by no means claiming that UARs are going to make you more secure. Absolutely not. You have to do the basics. There is no way around. You got to patch the systems. If there's anybody from DevOps, he should be applauding me on this. You got to patch your system with every single build. You got to have MFA. For every admin account you have, don't use a default root user, right? Create an admin account, right? Tiered admin accounts, as we call them. But last of all, as it is, you're having to do user access reviews for your compliance mandates. A lot of the folks I saw were from publicly listed company. Obviously, you got SOX to deal with, but there are others who may be having NIST or ISO 27001 frameworks for their internal controls. So what I'm saying is automate user access reviews. So you are doing them on a regular basis on all types of users. All right, so up until now, I talked about where do we automate? What's the common thread for compliance? What's the common thread for security, right? Now let's get into the benefits of automation, and I'm going to go through them fast because it's pretty obvious. This year we all woke up to pretty tons and tons of layoffs, right? You wake up, you hear one company laying off by dozens, right? And then everybody's been asked to do more with less. And this is a true story. I was on a customer call and I was asked, do you do managed services? Because unfortunately, we are going to have to part ways with a certain number of our employees. What you get with automation is, consistency. You can integrate all of your applications through our off-the-shelf connectors. And Sushank later on is going to talk about a lot of those use cases which have accelerated our adoption. Flex Connector is a very unique feature to us. It's kind of helped us a lot in building that consistent integrations, right? The other reason for automation is a pretty obvious one, right? The efficiency. You can keep doing the same thing on a regular basis. So you got integrations which are pulling in the data, right? They're massaging the data. We got a match logic, which essentially maps the identity pulled from a system of record. It is mapped to the credential it has in the system. It pulls all the entitlements that are tied to that identity in the system, right? Once it does that, it keeps doing it, right? The match works. Then we have a concept of campaigns. Sushank obviously is going to get into this. Once you create these templates and campaigns, you're just firing them off for your next reviews. We do have a very unique feature. We call it a Delta campaign that essentially allows you to do, just a Delta, but what changed since the last campaign? And that's been pretty popular for our customers who are kind of looking at how do I ensure that the users who have been assigned a privileged account are indeed, as of that day, needed. We all get moved into Tiger teams, right? We all get our privileges as needed. We got to bring them back, right? With that, let's talk about SecurEnds, our platform, right? So SecurEnds is a cloud native application. We are building cloud for the cloud. We essentially have a bunch of out of the box integrations that you can use to get the data. We were born in with the enterprise company, so essentially most of our connectors work with your on-prem apps. And you know what? It's funny. Everybody says they're a modern organization, and unless you are a true modern organization, which is born in the last 4 or 5 years, you are going to have on-prem assets. Right? Many of those on-prem assets actually do not authenticate through an IDP. How do you go about pulling the users? Right. So we have those features figured out. The other unique thing we do with a product is we are able to curate different flavor of access reviews. It's not just about a line manager. You may want to delegate it to, let's say an application owner or an entitlement owner or an alternate reviewer. And there are a bunch of other features we are working on in the next release, which will greatly empower like organization level reviews. And the biggest challenge, if you were to talk to anybody who does access reviews, is one is the data, right? You pull the data, you clean the data. The second big challenge is you got to chase people for approvals. You got to pick up your phone, you got to escalate to the manager, hey, can you approve this, right? What we did was our review campaigns could be administered via your standard IMs. Everybody's looking into the IMs, right? Or via the email. So that has greatly helped close the cycle time of many of these reviews. Okay, I've been with this company, folks, probably when we had 1.5 customers. I'll say 1.5. The half was a POC. And in the first 2 years, we actually added like 80 customers, right? And then I was for this slide, I was working with Dino, and I pulled our stat from the sales team. So the adoption of product, it kind of cuts across all the industries, right? I didn't put a slide on how it breaks down by mid-size and large, but that's also a very, very solid spread. So, there's obviously something we're doing here, which is working, which has led to our accelerated adoption. I was at Secure Worlds, I think this was Philly, and I shared it with all of my team in a corporate chat. A gentleman walks up to my booth, introduces himself. He is from a big health services company. He had recently moved on. And he said, hey, can you have one of your sales guy reach out to me? Because I've moved to this company and I actually want to bring you folks. So, for me, that's a huge testament. For Sushank, Dino, there are a lot of other folks who have actually made this product happen. It's a huge, huge testament. So with that being said, we also poll our customers, right? And when I ask our customers, folks, what stands out about a product? So I do want to make one point. We are a product company. We are not like a traditional product and it has a services partner and service partner is trying to make like service dollars. We advise you on what is right. If your use case doesn't work for us, or we cannot get you that time to value, right? We are going to walk away. We're going to tell you, you spend your money where it's worth. And when I poll these customers, because I said services is a part of the product, these are the different reasons I get. I always hear, you know what, you've increased the efficiency because I can do multiple different flavors of reviews. Your mind maps, which pulls in a view of the identity. And Sushank will show this because a picture is worth 1,000 words here. That mind map, the different flavors of it for user entitlement and application give you better visibility. They're able to reduce the compliance risk because guess what? Automation, efficiency, you are able to close the termination gap sooner. They talk about the improved accuracy and so on and so forth. And one of the things that I have heard of this, but I didn't experience it firsthand till I came here, enhanced scalability. So we have a customer who actually came to us from, back when they did the product. It used to be all on-prem, right, folks? That's how things used to roll. And anybody who knows provisioning systems, running them at scale in on-prem is it needs an effort. There's a cost to it. So, we create single tenant security is big for us. And yeah, born in cloud. Now, with that being said, I've talked a lot. I'm going to bring in Sushank here, and I'm going to let him talk about, folks, how can you use our product to gain this visibility and use it for compliance and security. Sushank's going to go through the remainder part. Thanks, Sushank.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abhi, for providing a very good overview about the, your thoughts about the industry and in general user access reviews. Thank you so much for that, and also thanks, Dino, for arranging this particular webinar and allowing us to, communicate with these different audiences and understand their perceptions about the user access reviews as well as the identity management market. And also thank you for the attendees for making time and attending this webinar. We are hoping that this webinar is so far productive for all of you guys. So basically what I would like to talk about in this particular webinar is having over close to a decade of experience in this identity and access management industry. I have personally seen how identity management industry has been evolved from just management to governance and administration, right? Even though this particular subject is in the industry from very long time, having spent last 2 years at SecurEnds and speaking with over 300 plus customers over the course of 2 years, what we have learned, the way customers are adopting this particular concept of identity governance and administration, it's pretty astonishing, because a lot of people were still doing access reviews manually. There are tools out there, the technology is out there, automation is out there, but for a lot of customers in the market, it is still not reachable. They are not well equipped or educated about how to automate user access reviews, and they're still doing manually. And they have a lot of problems doing user access reviews manually, whether it is data manipulation errors, data transformation errors, the way they are storing the data reports, which are siloed across the organizations, and they could not able to pull up the historical reports of the audit reports, whether it's findings or attestations as an evidence for user access reviews. So after learning this, we were like, okay, this particular concept is there in the industry from close to 10-15 years, and why this is not fully fledged into the industry where every organization is not automating these processes. Then me and Abhi and several other people in the company were discussing about this, and what we have understood is the fundamental aspect of the identity governance and administration implementation is the very first step to establish a relationship of who has access to what. First, you need to have a good knowledge of all the users in your company, whether they are humans or non-humans. And we collectively call them as identities, right? I mean, whether they are your employees, non-employees, service providers, partners, or they are your non-human accounts like bot accounts, containers, VMs, etc. Essentially, any object that can be hacked or give access to an outside person to get into the organization and do some rogue actions on it, right? So they all can be classified as an identity. And if you do not have a repository or inventory of all those identity information at one place where you can easily retrieve it, then to be honest with you, fundamentally, you are not establishing a foundation element for your identity program. And for that relationship of who has access to what, plus automating that data from a user access review standpoint periodically, so that someone from the company, essentially a person who has knowledge on those identities, whether it's manager or application owner or an entitlement owner, constantly or periodically reviewing those access and making decisions whether to remove or remediate those access in a timely manner, helps organizations to establish a really good foundation for the identity program. So what I would like to say is that, and I'm not just saying it based on my personal opinion, I'm just saying it based on the interviews that we had with over 300 plus customers and understanding the essential core problems. Then the solution that we thought is the first and foremost step before they sign up for a multi-million-dollar identity governance and administration implementation, they have to first establish the foundation. That is establishing an inventory of who has access to what, and then utilize that data to periodically review and remediate the unwanted user access or over provisioned user access. So continuing the conversation, we actually came up with 6 use cases which we thought which are pretty standard. And again, going back to the conversation me and Abhi having about strategizing this product, how do we position this in the market and stuff like that. So I was talking to Abhi like, if there is no particular segment of the customers who really need to automate user access reviews, it is for everyone. Every industry, every company pretty much needs this particular solution, because it's just not from a compliance and regulation standpoint. Yes, I mean, a lot of organizations do user access reviews just to comply with regulations and compliances like SOX and standards like NIST, ISO, HIPAA, etc., related to their industry. But if you actually see the core concept and the benefit of user access reviews is you are essentially trying to find out who has access to what, to your assets and applications, etc. So doing that access reviews periodically not just helps you from complying with this different regulation, but also to keep up with your security posture, access control procedures and process, etc. So it's a really good security process, and a very good hygiene for your overall organization security if you religiously practice automating this user access reviews process. So the first use case that you actually see on the slide, again, like I said, most of the organizations follow this process to comply with different security regulations and standards like SOX, HIPAA, SOC, ISO 2700, etc. So I really do not want to go into the definition of these different compliances, because those who are in the industry already know that these compliances need to be comply in order for them to run their business operations successfully, whether in the established areas or whether the new ventures that they want to roll out their company operations. So organizations have to keep up with these compliances because it's a law. It's a federal law that companies have to keep up with these compliances. Going to the second use case, Dino, can you change that to the second slide? So the next use case that we actually thought that we actually figured out after speaking to this several different customers is their current process of handling the terminations. As we all know, from last 3 years, we have seen a huge amount of layoffs that are happening outside in the market due to the economic conditions. But even before that, we haven't seen customers actually following a very secure hygiene practice as far as termination is concerned or offboarding is concerned. Offboarding can be done in several different ways. A typical offboarding that we all know comes from an HR system. When an employee or a non-employee is letting go from the company, then the official termination might actually come from the HR system, and then there would be several different processes that executes the termination. But in first place, the IT department or any other department in the company really do not have the data handy regarding what a particular identity has access to at that given point of time, so that they can effectively process the termination. They have to run here and there again, chase different department heads, admins, email notifications. There's tons of manual work. There are ticketing systems involved. There are different paper forms or PDFs that needs to be sent across to several different people in order to properly terminate those users from the company. If they don't do that, then that leads to different orphaned accounts or dormant accounts, and they are very risky accounts that is prone to compromise, because we do not know who is the owner of those accounts and how those accounts can be used against the organization in order to disrupt the business operations. So to going back to my main point, the foundational element of an identity program is to establish who has access to what. And if you establish that who has access to what and have a repository of all your identities and their access to different application systems, servers, and databases, you could able to effectively, I wouldn't say 100%, but at least 99% of the time, you could able to effectively process terminations of these users immediately and remove their access, so that they do not have access to the systems anymore if they have a wrong intention to do a malicious activity in the company. And now coming back and now going to the third use case, which is service account management. So Abhi kind of touched about service account management briefly when he was actually talking about the risks of having service accounts, right? So one thing what we have noticed is Generally, the service accounts were given low priority in the user access reviews process, and the human accounts who have admin privileges were given high priority. I mean, it kind of makes sense. We do understand that human accounts having admin privileges have to be periodically reviewed, so that we are establishing the main concept of who has access to what, by reviewing it, by reviewing the process and saying right people have access to right resources at right times. But service accounts also have that equal important, but so far in the user access reviews or governance process, service accounts are being ignored. But what we have learned is, and we all know, that service accounts also have administrative privileges. In fact, more than the human accounts are actually having, because the service accounts that has admin privileges used for system integrations. Hence, we might actually think a human being cannot utilize that service account and service account may not be compromised. But that is not the reality. Just like how human accounts work, service accounts also can get compromised if they are not monitored and reviewed periodically. So with SecurEnds product, you could able to easily classify a service account, assign a owner and reviewer for the service account, and then make those service accounts periodically review as part of your monthly or quarterly or semi-annually annual governance process. So those service accounts are monitored and attest. And if maintenance needs to be happen on those service account, when it comes to deactivation of service accounts or remediation, that process also can be followed. Now coming to the use case 4, which is a universal directory for third-party vendors. Now, again, I'm going back to the main point of establishing the fundamental foundation, that is who has access to what, right? So as part of this process, what we have learned after implementing our product at over 100 customers is they do not have a source of truth for all their identity types. For most of the organization, they do maintain an HR system where they store all their employees. But in this reality, in this world, we all know that both employees and non-employees plays equal amount of productive role in order for the growth of the company. So the non-employees also have equal amount of access like employees, but unfortunately, there are no good source of truths for maintaining these different non-employees coming from several different vendors, service providers from several different vendors, or several different technology partners, but not able to maintain a good source of truth for those different vendors, again creating an identity explosion. You have identities at disparate locations and we don't know who has access to what for those identities that do not have a source of truth. Then what we understood is we could able to make SecurEnds as a single platform and a single source of truth for all those different identity types who do not have a traditional system of record like an HR system. So utilizing SecurEnds, you can actually store all your non-employees who cannot be stored in the HR system. It could be several different reasons. It could be your HR policies. The licensing of the HR system for maintaining those identities could be pretty expensive. And you might not have to run payrolls for these non-employees because they are not your full-time employees. So in order for you to quickly have a good directory or a database to store all those different non-employee types, you can utilize SecurEnds universal directory for third-party vendors, and you can store all of them as their source records in SecurEnds and tie their accesses for several different applications. So with that way, you could able to solve your system of record problem for non-employees utilizing SecurEnds universal directory. Next use case. Yeah, Abhi, go ahead.
You and I kind of get really excited when we're talking about our use cases. So why don't we quickly go through what's left and have you show the picture that's behind these words, right? The product.
Definitely. Then quickly, I'll cover the use case 5 and I'll share my screen to show you some visualizations about the use cases that I'm actually talking about. Coming back to the use case 5, right? Data cleanup for role-based access control. Like again, Abhi mentioned this in his when he's talking about some of the risks of not doing user access reviews, right? The matured organizations who have started the identity programs way back, they all established a role-based access control program. A lot of people actually think RBAC is just a one-time project, but it is not. It's an ongoing program. You have to build roles, maintain roles, delete roles, attest roles, and make sure the role recertification process happens by role itself, not users having access to role. So it's a continuous program. But in order to even start this role-based access control program, you need to have a full list of all the entitlements what users have in several different applications. And from there, you could able to run your top-down or bottom-up analysis, whether role mining and stuff like that, to come up with these different access models where you could able to build roles on top of it and manage users' access via roles. Instead of giving 10 different entitlements directly to a user, you can take those 10 entitlements based on a good scientific process behind it, like understanding like how many users have this particular entitlement in the organization. If it is pretty significant, then combine those entitlements and build a role and manage the access, which is an easiest way to easiest as well as a secure way to manage users' access for your applications. But for that, you definitely need to have a foundational element of having all the entitlements of these users in one repository. So from there, you can clean up and start building access models. So you can use SecurEnds for that as a foundational for your role-based access control program. Do you have a next use case, Dino?
Segregation of duties, if you quickly want to
The segregation of duties. The name itself actually talks about the segregation of duties. Like one person should not have both conflicting entitlements in order to run, as per the job responsibility or operations. But we see when there is no governance platform, we see people actually having a lot of access to a lot of different applications, even though that the segregation of duties conflict. But there is no one good way of identifying those conflicts, and people really do not know how to solve the problem. But with SecurEnds, we have came up with a simple segregation of duties conflict policy engine, where you could able to just write the policies from one application. Entitlements from one applications cannot be assigned to a single individual, or one entitlement from an application and another entitlement from another application cannot be assigned to a single particular user. So you can actually do a detective segregation of duties utilizing SecurEnds SOD policy engine and run reports and identify people who have conflicts and toxic combinations. Through that, you could able to resolve people in the organizations having access to two different toxic combination of entitlements. So you can definitely use SecurEnds segregation of duties policy engine in order to identify and remediate those conflicts and toxic combinations. Now let me quickly share my screen and show you the visualizations of what I'm actually talking about behind these different use cases. One second.
While we're waiting on Sushank to share his screen, I'm going to run a quick poll here. It's called, are you satisfied with the current user access review process? You should be seeing that on your screen now. Just go ahead and vote. You can kind of, whether or not you're using manual processes right now or automated process, or if you're using some kind of existing solution. Just go ahead and share your answer, and then you can share the results later on.
Dino or Abhi, please let me know if you guys could able to see my screen.
I can.
Yep.
Awesome. So this is the dashboard for SecurEnds. Of course, you can actually see a lot of widgets here, which stores several different information. I'm not going to go in detail about this each different widgets, but I'll just show you the high-level functionality about the use cases that I actually talked about. So the first important step is the data ingestion process. We do have several different ways of ingesting the data. We could able to do a file upload, we could able to do a database integration, and we could able to do API connectors. We do have 50 plus direct integrations for most of the well-known applications in the market, for which you could able to utilize an out-of-the-box API connector in order to connect to that system and get the relevant data back to the tool. Talking about the identity mind map, so this is where I was talking about establishing a foundation of who has access to what. So ideally, any organization should able to tell what access a particular identity has across the company, whether it's application, servers, database, irrespective of how many different accounts the user has access to. So let's say Rick Rodriguez as an example here, right? So in this mind map, as you can see, Rick has access to these several different applications. Inside this Active Directory, this is Rick's credential and the different entitlements that Rick has access to in Active Directory. And coming to AWS, Rick has 2 accounts. As we all know, in the IT organizations, usually people have 2 different accounts. One is the regular account, the other one is the admin account. But the goal, again, from a SecurEnds standpoint, is you have to correlate all those different accounts a particular identity has back to the user's identity. And then we can further expand this and see what are all the entitlements, which are groups and policies that user's regular account has inside Active Directory, inside AWS, and users admin account inside AWS. So this is a cool visualization, which is called as mind map, where you could able to utilize in order to find out who has access to what, or for the matter of fact, you can establish a foundation of who has access to what, and you can actually do a lot of things once you establish this particular state of data. You can set up this data for certification campaigns to attest whether users still need access to these groups, policies, and stuff like that. Or you can utilize this data to run entitlement analysis, whether top down or bottom up, to start building RBAC roles. And like I said, you could definitely able to process terminations for these users, because we already know what all access the user has, and you can easily process terminations from here. So this particular view actually gives you that relationship of who has access to what. And when I actually talk about an SOD policy, as you can see, the SOD policy configuration from SecurEnds standpoint is pretty straightforward and easy. All you need to do is give a policy name, description, ID, and then start writing the policy itself. Just select the application, select the entitlement inside that application, and then select the conflicting entitlement either from this application or same application, and you can start building queries like this. And then you could, once the queries were built, you could able to utilize the SOD report to run those policies, select those policies and run those queries, whether on demand, on sync, daily, weekly, monthly. We recommend to kind of run this SOD checks pretty much every day to find out if there are any conflicts, so that those conflicts can be remediated as soon as possible. So that's the segregation of duties module. And then coming to the universal directory that we are actually talking about, right? So this form where you have here add person, you could able to come up with this different employee types, whether regular, full-time, part-time, service provider, contractor, etc., and then start populating their information. If you want, you could able to add additional attributes if you think those are relevant for the new employee type that you are hiring. And once you create an identity here from this add person tab, those identities are stored inside SecurEnds as a system of record identity, and their accesses from target systems can be tied back to it. Then you're also governing those non-employees just like your employees from a different source. And then the final thing that I would like to show is the campaign reports. So we all run access reviews in some or the other fashion, where you pull reports from different people, you do data transformation in Excel sheets, you email the reviewers those different Excel sheets, and they make the decision. It's not I would say reliable method of doing it, because you cannot find out what is the live status of the campaign, because people are actually working on their Excel sheets, and we really don't know how much percentage is completed until and unless they get back to us those Excel sheets to do our final analysis. But since with SecurEnds platform, those user access reviews are configured and scheduled and sent to the reviewers electronically, we could able to find out the live status of the campaign. As you can see in this campaign report, you can see how many of the items inside the campaign are revoked, how many of them are approved, and how many items are still pending with their risk report, like 9 managers, 16 employees, 43 credentials, and 69 entitlements. So you could able to monitor this progress on day-to-day basis and effectively take the right actions. You can configure automatic reminders and escalations through this platform for all the managers who have pending items. So through this campaign reports, you could effectively able to monitor the campaign and hopefully effectively able to complete this campaign on time, and pull the reports out of this campaign to show as an evidence for your internal and external auditors that an access review has been performed on this set of identity data, applications, credentials, and entitlements. So this is a very powerful feature, having this report to monitor the live status of the campaigns, right from the SecurEnds campaign reports. So that is pretty much it. From a high-level overview standpoint, of course, I do not want to go very deep into this product demo in this particular webinar. I'm pretty much sure we'll definitely going to meet again one-on-one, scheduling those deep dive demos. We can go a little bit deep into the product. But for now, this is what I would like to show from a quick overview standpoint, the main 6 important use cases that we have identified after talking to 300 plus customers in order to establish that foundation for an identity program. And then I would like to just show you a quick overview of SecurEnds screen, how those use cases can be configured from a SecurEnds standpoint. So with this, I am transferring this back to Dino. Please let us know for the next steps.
Thanks, Sushank. That was actually pretty good. You were able to tie in, the value prop, right? The basic foundation of the company was built by engineers. It had a bunch of IGA practitioners, right? We looked at the industry and we're like, you know what? There's another way to do it. There's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And let's do what's right for the customer. So I really appreciate you coming up with those the narrative behind those use cases. Go ahead, Dino.
You want to reshare your screen again? Bring up the presentation again.
Ooh, I forgot. Hold on. Let me do that. There you go, folks. You should be able to let me know if you can see this.
All right, so got through. So do you want to run through this last part, or?
Shashank, you want to go ahead with the last? I think you kind of summarized a lot of these points, right? I don't believe there's anything that's left.
Did we go through the customer stories?
Probably not, Shashank.
Yeah, we can just continue from here.
Yeah, I mean, so again, we just want to kind of showcase a couple of customer success stories. One is with the banking, another one with the telecom. Abhi actually showed our pie chart of different customers that we have from several different industries. As you can see, finance and banking being our top most primary customer base. So we kind of took an case study from our customer success story from the banking industry. So again, my experience at SecurEnds over the 2 years is fantastic because I learned a lot of new information that I haven't learned being in a traditional IGA market so far before joining SecurEnds. Apparently, there are so many, when I say so many, there are in thousands credit unions and banks who actually use core banking applications, whether it's Jack Henry, Silver Lake, FIS, Pfizer, etc. So pretty much they run their banking operations on those core banking applications. Most of the time, there are mainframe applications, pretty hard to integrate or interpret data from those applications. And we have seen those banks and credit unions struggling a lot doing user access reviews on those core banking applications. But SecurEnds able to come up with a solution to kind of come up with some flexible integration, I would call, to those different core banking applications. For example, for Jack Henry Silver Lake, there is something called IS9143P report that comes out of their AS400 systems. And for Pfizer Premier, it is, I guess, 0350 report, I guess. So these are all mainframe reports that are not, user-friendly, non-human readable and stuff like that. But we could able to work with these different customers, come up with solutions to interpret those reports in a human-friendly way, and then take the data, ingest into SecurEnds, and show who has access to what to those different core banking applications. I mean, their terminologies inside those applications is a little bit different from the mainstream. Like they don't call them as groups, roles, permissions, etc. They have templates, and templates have some sub-templates, banking core templates, etc. So we had to interpret them, work with them, spend a lot of time understanding those applications and able to bring solutions for those applications. So this banking customer who's doing their manual user access reviews from those systems, getting the data, manipulating it all the time, transforming it all the time, and then packaging it together, sending to the managers. For that, they have to reach out to the HR system to identify who is the right reviewer. So it's actually a mess. It's like a cluster of different people, processes, and they're all manual. So utilizing SecurEnds process, they could able to establish their source of truth by getting identities from several different places. And then utilizing our core banking application connectors, they could able to frequently get the data into the system. And the data is easily presentable for the reviewers. They could able to configure the campaign and then run their reviews. Before they, as per their auditing policies, they have to run access reviews monthly on these core banking applications. And they are spending probably like 200 to 50 hours every month in order to get this data, transform it, and send it. With SecurEnds, they could able to automate a lot of that process, which actually saved them at least 70% of the time, spending on more valuable things, doing analysis or understanding risk, stuff like that, and giving the automation job to SecurEnds. So they are very happy that they could able to cut their time and cost over 70% from their manual process. Abhi, would you like to speak on the customer success from telecom? I'm assuming this is our main important customer in the telecom industry.
That's right. So this is one of the big boys of telecom, and essentially, we had a pretty accelerated win with them, and we actually did a POC. So a lot of these enterprise customers, right? They want evidence, they want proof of, you have the value that you're speaking, that there is the meat behind these decks. So we had a pretty accelerated POC with them, and they were actually procuring all of this through a big SI. They essentially brought in the SI, and we were able to put together an RPA solution for them, working with the SI. And they are able to do, in telecom, right? You got a lot of seasonal workers, people who are going in and out, right? They are able to actually not only leverage the universal directory concept, but also able to do these recurring reviews. And essentially, the way they do it is they do SOX is applicable to them. They're trying to do this critical application on a quarterly basis, but they're also doing monthly reviews on privileged users. So that's another strong testament. Folks, it's not on the slide, but I do want to mention this. We typically don't get into this high pressure sales tactics, right? That's why we added like 80 customers the first 2 years. And essentially the way we do it is, if somebody has a use case they want to discuss, they hit us up. The solution engineering team comes in. Sushank is an excellent leader. He always has he always wants to do what's right for the customer and not necessarily chasing dollars. And we have done POCs where this one POC that we did for, it's a privately held big conglomerate here in States. And in 2 weeks, we were actually able to flush 200, close to 200. I think 198 was the count, 198 orphan accounts. So imagine a POC, which is always limited in scope. And within that scope, we were able to show the value of the product. So that's essentially what my final thoughts are. You folks, if you're looking for help with compliance, you also get the benefit of the other use cases we are able to solve. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the remaining slides, but I will open it for Q&A. So if you folks have any questions, Dino, are there any questions that you can see?
Not yet, but yeah, if you guys have any questions about the SecurEnds platform, or even want to share an instance that you're dealing with right now when it comes to user access reviews, go ahead. We'll take a few minutes here to do kind of a little interactive chat or Q&A. But one thing I did want to mention is I ran the poll earlier, and the vast majority of the answers on the poll were that you're not currently happy with your user access review process. So, it's a good thing you're attending this webinar, because this is what we do. We really just eliminate all the pain points of this traditional process that's usually involved with, your Excel spreadsheets and phone call correspondence and whatnot. It's really a process that hasn't changed since like the 90s. And we're really working towards using automation to help companies and organizations just eliminate all the hard work from this process, really just free up resources. And especially in this time right now where, most budgets are really tight. A lot of companies don't have a lot of money to spend on huge solutions that cover all kinds of different bases, and they're really hard to manage. What we do is we target the most important first line of defense when it comes to cybersecurity and compliance, which is user access reviews. So on the screen here, if you're interested afterwards, you can grab a full demo of our product on our website. And also after the webinar, you'll be redirected right to the registration page for that as well. If you're currently using manual user access review process, we highly recommend getting together with us, doing a personalized web or a personalized demo of our product where we'll really go in depth and analyze your current process and show you exactly what things would look like with SecurEnds. But yeah, just thanks everyone for joining the webinar. If you have any questions, we'll go ahead and give it a few minutes. Otherwise, I don't know if you guys want to add any closing thoughts.
And folks, we're going to be in a couple of these events. We have signed up for the remaining Secure World events. We are also going to be at Jack Henry annual banking conference. I believe we have also signed up for the other ones, the FIS and CISOs. So you folks, you know what, if you're headed out there, just let us know. We'd love to sit down, chat, maybe grab a coffee. You can give me feedback on the product. And we're always trying to, like I said, company was built by a bunch of engineers, right? And it's surrounded by IGA practitioners. Our endeavor is build the right thing. So always interested in hearing your feedback, folks.
Awesome. Yeah, if you want to just move to the last slide where it has our contact info, I think if that's it from us,
There you go.
The webinar here. You can reach out to us all on LinkedIn, Twitter, and our website, SecurEnds.com. We're very active on LinkedIn. We've really been connecting with a lot of users there. So go ahead afterwards and connect with us afterward. And we'll be sending out the recording of this webinar shortly in about a day or two. So in case maybe you know somebody that wanted to attend but couldn't, you'll be able to share it with them as well. But I think that's it from us. Thanks everyone for joining the webinar again. We hope to see you on the next one. We'll be doing these probably on a monthly basis. Next month we'll probably be working with a partner or even one of our current customers to just share the before and after of kind of working with their product. Especially it'll be great with the customer, but we'll keep everyone informed on LinkedIn and through email as to the next webinar, but it'll probably be towards the end of next month. We hope to see you on the next one. And again, thanks. And I think that's it for us today, unless you guys got anything else.
Thank you, folks.
Everyone, bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.